days. Why is what's happening in the US the start of the great prophecy, as Our Lady of Fatima said it would be? You'll be shocked. Many people are not ready for what's going to happen, and it's scary to see how the third prophecy of Fatima has already started to come true in our country. There has always been a lot of mystery around the third prophecy of Fatima, which has a lot to do with the Catholic Church. The secret Our Lady kept secret for many years is now ready to be told. People who held on to this secret say now is not the right time to tell everyone. Pope John Paul II didn't open the sealed envelope that held the secret of Fatima until the year 2000. People say that these revelations are about things like hell, the 2 world wars, the problems Christians had in the 20th century, and a possible new wave of communism that will soon take over the world. But the question still stands: are Our Lady of Fatima's visions real? Don't forget to click the subscribe button right below this video if you believe in God and Jesus Christ and want to see more videos like this. Mary is known as Our Lady of Fatima because she visited 3 children in Fatima, Portugal, while they were taking care of sheep. When they saw Mary, she told them to pray the rosary every day to help end World War I, which was going on at the time. For 6 months, Mary showed up to Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco every month. According to the Bishop of Leiria, Fatima, these visions were real in 1930. The Catholic Church also agreed with this in the same year. Today, about 6 million people visit Fatima every year, making it one of the most popular pilgrimage sites. On May 13th, the day of the first apparition, and October 13th, many people come to Fatima to pray for healing and other needs, and to receive a special blessing. Going all the way back to 1917, the Virgin Mary showed up to 3 children in Portugal for 6 months. Lucia dos Santos, her cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto, and she all saw the ghosts. She is the most famous of them. Lucia was very helpful in telling the bishop in charge of the area the secrets that Mary had given her. Please let me know if you already knew about the third Fatima prophecy and what you think about it. As word spread about the ghosts in Fatima, many people asked for a clear sign. Several newspapers wrote about the famous miracle of the sun, in which the sun seemed to dance in the sky during Mary's last apparition in October 1917. Tens of thousands of people saw the event. People were interested in more than just the supernatural events. They were also interested in the secrets Lucia said she got from Our Lady during one of her visits, which wasn't the first or the last. Francisco and Jacinta Marto died too young because of the Spanish flu epidemic. Lucy dos Santos, on the other hand, lived to be 97 years old, became a Carmelite nun, and died in 2005. 330 years after the apparitions, the Bishop of Fatima asked Lucia to write down the secrets she had been given. She wrote down the first 2 quickly, but she wasn't sure if she should tell the third secret. The bishop finally told Lucia to write down the third secret, which she did. She sealed it in an envelope and said it wouldn't be opened until 1960, when it was thought the information would be easier to understand. Francisco and Jacinta were made saints by Pope John Paul II in 2000. They were the youngest children who were not martyrs to be honored by the Catholic Church. Later, Pope Francis made the apparitions holy in 2017, during the events honoring their 100th anniversary. It is said that Our Lady came to Fatima 6 times and told the children 3 revelations. These are known as the 3 secrets of Fatima. A vision of hell was part of the first secret. Lucia told them that Our Lady showed her hell, which was full of souls who were suffering. While the vision was only a moment, it caused the children a lot of pain. They had even more faith in Mary's promise to lead the faithful to Christ, so that souls would not have to go through such a terrible fate. Our Lady told the children in the second secret that World War I would soon be over. She did, however, say that a new world war would start during the pontificate of Pius XI, who led the Church from 1922 to 1939, if people kept disobeying God, and Russia did not change. It was her wish that Russia be dedicated to her Immaculate Heart. Impressively, World War II started in 1939, just as everyone had said it would. People think that the third secret is the most mysterious and controversial of the three. At first, Sister Lucia didn't want to tell anyone, but when the Bishop of Leiria asked her to, she wrote it down. The public didn't see this document until the year 2000, when it was finally opened. The world learned Fatima's third secret at the same time that Francisco and Jacinta Marto were made saints in 2000. Lucia wrote down this third part of the secret that was given to her at Cova da Iria in Fatima on July 13, 1917. She did it because God told her to, and because the Bishop of Leiria told her to, with the help of the Virgin Mary. After Lucy talked about the first two parts of the secret, she told of a vision she had of an angel with a burning sword standing to the left of Our Lady and just above her. The sword's flames, which looked like they could destroy the world, went out when they touched the bright light coming from Our Lady's right hand. Making a point with his right hand toward earth, the angel kept calling out, "Penance, penance, penance." Following this, the kids were surrounded by a huge light that they thought was God, and they saw a scene that looked like people walking by in a mirror. They saw what they thought was the Pope, a bishop dressed in white, walking up a steep mountain with other bishops, priests, and religious figures. At the top of the mountain was a big cross made of rough-hewn logs that looked like tree bark. Before getting to the top, the Pope walked through a city that was mostly destroyed. He prayed slowly and with a lot of sadness for the souls of the dead he saw along the way. He knelt at the foot of the big cross when he got to the top of the mountain, which is where he was killed by a group of soldiers who shot and killed him. In the same way, many bishops, priests, religious leaders, and people from different social classes were also killed. Two angels with crystal aspersoria grabbed the blood of the martyrs from under the cross and sprinkled it on the souls that were ascending to God. When this secret was made public, it was often linked to the plot to kill Pope John Paul II on May 13, 1981. The vision and the real event are different, though. In the secret, the bishop in white is killed, but the Pope lives. Because of this, some people think the vision might be about something that hasn't happened yet. The text of the third secret, on the other hand, was made public, and Cardinal Ratzinger, who would later become Pope Benedict XVI, gave a detailed explanation of what it meant. He said that because there was so much talk about the secret, some people might not find it as impressive or even surprising. Ratzinger said that the secret doesn't reveal any big mysteries or give very accurate predictions about the future. He made it clear that the vision's goal is not to tell people what will happen in the future, but to warn them about how important it is to change things and not see things as inevitable. His interpretation of the vision is that it shows we are not tied to a certain future. Actually, it makes us more aware of the risks we face and how to stay safe. Okay, let's learn more about the times Our Lady of Fatima appeared to the children. This will prepare us for the sixth and final appearance, when the secrets were finally revealed. During the first appearance of Our Lady in Fatima on May 13, 1917, Mary told the three children to come back on the same day every month for 6 months. She told them they would have a hard time, but she promised they would get to heaven in the end. She also asked them to pray the rosary every day to make the world a better place. Mary told them to say the Fatima prayer at the end of each decade of the rosary in the second vision, which happened on June 13, 1917. The kids asked to go to heaven, and Mary told them that she would soon take Jacinta and Francisco to heaven, but Lucia would stay on earth for a while longer. Mary showed the children a scary picture of hell during the third apparition, which happened on July 13, 1917. She also told them that God wanted people to have a strong devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in order to save souls from this terrible fate. At the same time, she predicted that World War II would happen and that Christians would be persecuted in Russia. She said that if people didn't pray and dedicate Russia to her Immaculate Heart, the country would spread its errors around the world, starting wars and persecuting the Church. During the fourth apparition, on August 19, 1917, the children were held by the local administrator so they could not meet Mary. 6 days after what happened, though, Mary showed up to them in a field and told them to pray hard and offer sacrifices for sinners. To explain, she said that many souls were sent to hell because no one could pray for them. In the fifth apparition, which happened on September 13, 1917, a lot of people saw white rose petals fall from the sky and disappear before they hit the ground. This was Lucia's chance to ask Our Lady to heal the sick. Then Mary told them that not all of them would be healed because the Lord didn't trust all of them. On October 13, 1917, Our Lady of Fatima had her sixth and most famous apparition. Between 70,000 and 100,000 people saw the famous miracle of the sun today. It could be seen from up to 16 kilometers away. Even skeptical reporters who were there to cover the event said they saw strange things that they couldn't explain. Mary told people that she was the Lady of the Rosary and told them to change their lives, ask God to forgive them for their sins and stop bothering him, stressing that he was already very upset. The three kids, Lucia, Francisco, and Ginta, were picked to have this amazing meeting with Our Lady. Even though there were a lot of adults around, Mary chose to tell three young shepherds who she was. There was no chance in this. The stories of Lucia, Francisco, and Ginta show how God's grace and mercy can be seen and touched. In these kids' lives, we can see the paradoxical power that has always been a part of the story of salvation. The stark contrast between the powerful and cocky with their plans and goals, and the humble ones chosen by God to change the world through the simplicity of their lives. The young shepherds of Fatima saw God's mercy and spread the message that was given to them by living humbly. Because they were chosen, they were to show the world the merciful face of a God who is pure goodness. Their lives showed this divine light, which lit up the hearts of those who were called to share this great news, even in the shade of an oak tree in Aljustrel. In the early 1900s, Francisco, Ginta, and their cousin Lucia grew up in a small village in the parish of Fatima. They lived in a simple home in a quiet and isolated area. They didn't have much money and couldn't go to school. They couldn't read or write and didn't know much about the world beyond the mountains that were around them. Their simple Christian upbringing reflected the fact that they lived in a remote area. Lucia's mother taught her daughter and nephews the catechism. Since Lucia was a little older, she taught her cousins the Bible stories and prayers she had learned from her mother. Even though the kids' religious upbringing wasn't complicated, it was clear that their parents knew how to live a life of dedicated faith. On Sundays, they went to Mass together, prayed as a family, and were honest, respectful, and kind to those who were less fortunate. Lucia, in particular, was very sensitive to God's love. She also had a deep desire to be fully immersed in this love from a very young age, which would guide her throughout her life. Because he was so thoughtful, Francisco valued inner silence and kept a close connection with nature. He could feel God's presence in everything around him. Both the sunrise and the sunset, which he saw as the Lord's candle, amazed him. Ginta, on the other hand, was very interested in the moon. She called it Our Lady's candle because she thought its soft light wasn't bad for the eyes. Ginta loved her cousin Lucia very much and would follow her around. She also loved the lambs very much and would call them by name and hug them to her chest to show that she cared for them like the Lord does. These kids had a wonderful, carefree life. They loved God deeply and didn't worry about anything else. They had an interesting event happen to them on a beautiful spring day in 1916. The three friends said a simple prayer and then saw something amazing. A light brighter than snow coming from the trees that looked like a young man made of crystal shining in the sun. At that very moment, they had no idea that they were facing a peace messenger sent by God to start a new part of their lives full of prayer and spiritual connection. This vision came as a complete surprise, and the bright light that was there amazed and moved them deeply. The angel of peace came to see the three kids 3 times in the same year, 1916, in the spring and summer. Every time they saw the angel, it touched their hearts and helped them understand God's love and how he wants to be loved. The angel said that God has a heart that hears the humble and has a special plan for their good. he told the kids to worship God with all their hearts and to take part in Christ's sacrifice, which would bring everyone closer to God. During one of these visits, the angel even gave them the most valuable gift, the body and blood of Christ. He also asked them to make sacrifices for people who aren't thankful to God all the time. So those young shepherds gave their whole lives to worshiping God and helping others. They were brave and wanted to make their lives a gift to the Creator. This desire grew stronger when, on May 13, 1917, they saw the Virgin Mary, who was brighter than the sun. For 6 months, every 13th, Mary went to see the three friends and reminded them of God's call for them to be humble witnesses of His love in a world full of pain. Mary asked them if they were ready to give their lives to God and go through whatever pain He would let them go through as a way to make up for their sins and help other people turn away from their sins. The young people learned from Mary's visions that God's love is woven into the story of humanity, that sin often looks like ignoring God's love, but that God is merciful and always looks for people, even when they are going through hard times. Spiritual people who believe in God's love are asked to help God care for people through prayer and sacrifice. In their first meeting with the heavenly light, Lucia, Francisco, and Ginta were so shocked by what they saw that they chose to keep it a secret. But Ginta, who was deeply moved by the beauty of Our Lady and filled with great joy, couldn't keep quiet. Before anyone else, she spoke about how amazed she was, just like the disciples on the road to Emmaus who couldn't hold back their joy after seeing the risen Christ. Happiness filled Ginta's heart as she told her friends what had happened. As time went on, more and more pilgrims came to the Cova d'Era to see the apparitions of Our Lady of the Rosary. But as the visions became more well known, they became harder for the young shepherds. They started to go through a lot of pain, especially from people who didn't believe what they said they saw or were against it. From the start, Our Lady had told them that they would have a hard time, which is what many prophets do. People often said they were lying or trying to get rich, so the hard times became part of their mission. But Francisco and Ginta's father was the only one in their families who started to doubt the visions because they were worried about their safety and what might happen. At home and everywhere else they went, the three young shepherds were constantly questioned and questioned for long periods of time. August 13th was the hardest day. That morning, the town's administrator, who was known for his free thinking and Masonic beliefs, showed up out of the blue. He questioned them at home and at the parish, and then tried to find out what secret they were keeping by playing tricks on them. He said he would take them to the Cova d'Era, but instead took them to a different place and put even more pressure on them to tell him the secret. When they wouldn't talk, he put them in a cell with other prisoners and threatened to torture them by burning them in olive oil, among other things. The young shepherds' lives were completely shaped by their faith. Francisco, in response to the whole situation, said, "If they kill us, it doesn't matter. We will go to heaven." Lucia, Francisco, and Ginta kept the promise they made to Our Lady because they really wanted to grow in their love for God. They thought that being with God was like being in a holy place. In the same way that Moses took off his sandals in front of the burning bush, their relationship with God turned into an ongoing act of worship, an inner light that never went out. This mystery made them stronger. This burning bush in their hearts woke them up just like Moses did, to their mission to help people who are stuck in sin and not being thankful for what they have. They became reflectors of God's light and prayed for people. In every small way, they gave their lives as an offering because they loved God and people who were sinners. Ginta and Lucia both followed this calling in different ways, such as by reflecting, caring, and speaking out. However, each of them took on different aspects of this mission. Francisco had a deep spiritual sensitivity, so he spent most of his time worshiping God and looking for His presence in silence and inner peace. Ginta, on the other hand, lived her faith with happiness, purity, and kindness. She made every little thing she did a sacrifice to God that pleased Him and helped people. In response to God's call to dedicate the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Lucia went out into the world to preach the message of God's mercy. Lucia became a witness and stayed out of the way so that the light of the divine secret could shine all the time, just like the sun did in Fatima. She was a good carrier of a gift that was given to everyone. It was different for Francisco and Ginta. They lived short, simple lives that were filled with love, love that was shown by the light of our very beautiful lady. By the end of 1918, both had a lot of people who had pneumonia. The woman had already told them that they would be in heaven soon, so the kids knew that their time on earth was almost up. Who would have thought that lives so short and simple could show love so deep and intense? The idea that the third secret of Fatima is a warning about terrible things that will happen in the church in the future is still being talked about, and there are already signs that it is coming true in many places. Some things that happen in the US are seen as fitting with this picture of crisis in the church and the world. Now, let's talk about 8 signs that the third Fatima prophecy has already started to come true in the US. Sign number 1, a crisis of morals and faith. A lot of religious people say that American society is losing its Christian values because of the rise of secularism and growing disagreements over moral and ethical issues like abortion, same-sex marriage, and other social issues. Some people see this as a spiritual crisis because these arguments have caused disagreements within different religious groups in the US, even within the Catholic Church. The second sign is that there are problems in the Catholic Church. Sexual abuse has been a problem for the Catholic Church in the US for a long time. Many cases have come to light in the last few decades. For many Christians, this has broken their trust and caused a crisis of faith and leadership in the church. This could be seen as part of the crisis in the church that the third secret of Fatima talks about. Tensions in the economy and politics are the third sign. The United States has been dealing with more political division, social unrest, and economic problems over the past few years. These things, along with the uncertainty around pandemics, climate change, and even nuclear tensions, can be seen as signs of terrible global crises, which some connect to Fatima-style prophecies. Disasters and climate change are the fourth sign. Some people think that the rise in extreme weather like wildfires, hurricanes, and severe droughts is part of a plan for the end of the world that may have been hinted at in the third secret of Fatima. Some theologians and people who study prophecy say that these disasters are signs from God that people need to change the way they live. Sign number 5, intolerance and persecution based on religion. More and more people in the US think that Christians, especially Catholics, are being discriminated against or left out more. Some interpretations of the third secret say that arguments about religious freedom and laws that limit religious activities in public can be seen as a subtle form of persecution. This is similar to what the third secret says about suffering and persecution. The sixth sign is a pandemic that has an effect on faith. In the US, the recent pandemic had a big impact on religious groups. Religious ceremonies were cut short and churches were closed. Many Christians had faith crises because they had lost loved ones and felt alone. This event may be a sign of the Great Tribulation that the Fatima prophecy talks about, which will have long-lasting effects on society and religion. Scarce food and other crises are the seventh sign. People in the US are becoming more worried about food security and inflation, especially since the pandemic. This has made some people think that a serious economic crisis may be coming soon. A situation like this, which has a huge impact on people's lives, could be seen as one of the terrible things that people often think will happen in the future because of the third secret. Sign number 8. The Catholic Church is split up. Besides the sexual abuse scandals, the Catholic Church is having more and more arguments about things like the role of women in the church, the celibacy of priests, and how to accept LGBTQ+ people. Conservatives and progressives in the US church are fighting with each other over these debates. Some see this as an internal crisis that could be a sign of what the third secret says will happen in the future: division and suffering within the church. Do the right thing and love God very much, like the 3 young shepherds did. They felt God's love for people very deeply. God chose them to be prophets of this love that was given to the world and to shepherd in line with God's heart. Our Lady of Fatima really wanted all of her followers to pray every day for lost souls to be saved and for peace to happen in the world. Mary's message is an invitation for us to pray more often and with more passion. A lot of people only pray when they are really upset. Maybe now is the time to get that rosary out that you've been putting away since you were confirmed. For people who already pray the rosary, Fatima's message encourages them to renew and deepen their prayer life. They can do this by starting new devotional habits, focusing more during prayers, or even setting aside more time